Hello and welcome to Country Life Simple. As you probably know, I'm German, living in central Queensland, Australia, and I do love to bake and eat sourdough bread. Bread in general, to be honest, but yes, specifically sourdough bread. I used to have a love-hate relationship with sourdough starters. I used to work for a long time ago, and I've been away every other month, so I really had trouble trying to maintain the starter. It normally just died in the fridge and I couldn't really revive it, and in the end I gave up. I recently started trying to explore different kinds of methods on how to make sourdough starters and sourdough breads. And although a lot of people probably will say there is a science to it, and there is, I do agree, there's a bit of science behind it, but it can be done easier than you probably think. So today I want to show you how I make my starter, and that is after I have learned from some actually of the older German generations. Unfortunately in my family we didn't bake any bread. My mum, my grandma, they never baked bread. We lived in a capital city and there were so many nice bakeries and so much variety, it just wasn't worth it, I guess. But obviously here in Australia, if I want to eat the kind of dark, seedy rye bread I like, I have to bake it myself. And for digestive reasons, the best one is actually a sourdough bread. It's much healthier on your gut than a yeast bread, for example. So I've tried different things, and I discussed with people on German Facebook groups, older people, older generations who have been baking their sourdough bread for a very, very long time. And I found some really good tips to help you to get your starter going and to maintain it quite easily without discards, without feeding, which always was a problem to me. I really hated to discard my starter, and I hated to have to feed it every day. And then I go away for, a week or a month in my case. And by the time I came back, it was basically dead. So I learned a lot in the last few years since I have established my starters. And today I'm going to show you one of my recipes to do a starter. So obviously today is day one. Creating a sourdough starter is not something you do, within a day. It takes time for it to become active and to bubble, especially in the moment. As you can see, it is winter and it is quite cool. Our beautiful Queensland home is probably, if you're lucky, during the day maybe 20 degrees, during the night more like 5 to 10 degrees. So it's a bit harder to keep the starter alive than in summer. In summer they normally they bubble away very, very quickly. After 3 days I can start baking a sourdough bread. But in winter it probably does take a little bit longer. So I'll show you my recipe, and I also will talk about some tips I have learned. I haven't necessarily tried all of them myself, but I have been given those tips by various German omas, grandmas, and hopefully it will help you along to your sourdough journey as well. So come and join me. So what do you need to create a sourdough starter? You need a glass jar. I normally use a wide mouth glass jar because I find it easier to use the spoon in, and it doesn't sort of stick onto the sides. You need water, warm water, not hot water, so don't boil it, just needs to be warm. So I just did the dishes, and this is warm water. I'm going to make a rye flour, a rice starter, so I use rye flour. If you want to use wheat, you can do that. I would suggest you use baker's flour. It's a bit more active than plain flour. In saying that, you can achieve a good starter with plain flour. But if you have issues, just get a better flour, because that can make the difference. And what I'm also going to use is yogurt. I use yogurt to activate my starter. In summer I probably wouldn't. I don't need to, because the temperature is high here, the humidity is high. But in winter I do like yogurt to add to the sourdough starter. There is people who, or what I've been told by the German grandmas, by the German omas, They said apparently caraway seeds, if you add about 1/8 of a teaspoon of caraway seeds, it will activate the starter a lot more as well. I haven't actually got any caraway seeds because I don't, about being German, I am German, but I do not like caraway seeds. You don't taste them anymore if you do put them in the starter, but I haven't got any, and I haven't needed any so far. What I sometimes do in summer, when I just use water and flour, I put in a raisin or a sultana or something like that, just to activate the starter. In the moment, what I will do, so I'll just create the starter for now. So I've got my clean glass jar, I've got my yogurt, my rye flour, and my water. I do measure, but it's not necessarily an exact science. I'm trying to use about 1/2 cup of rye flour. This is a 1/4 of a cup, so 2 of them will be 1/2 cup. And then I use the same amount in liquid, so I mix it 1/2 between yogurt and water, just to, you know, for it not to be too thick. An alternative would be buttermilk. Buttermilk is really good for making sourdough starter, but I haven't got any. So that's basically it. I'm going to mix this with a wooden spoon. I have been told that you should always use wooden instruments, but in the past I have also used, you know, just normal metal knives and forks. Never really had a problem, but that's what they say. And you see, it is actually quite thick. The thicker it is, the more nutrients there is for the bacteria to build. Is it bacteria? I think so. Probably. The yeast bodies. They always say as well, you should name your starter. So I'm going to call mine Otto. Otto, not like the movie with Tom Hanks, but Otto to me has a very personal meaning. And my mum would probably know. It was the first word I could actually spell and write. It's not a very hard word, but I think I wrote it with about 4 years old. So this is all I'm doing for the first day. Like I said, I use 1/2 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of yogurt, and 1/4 cup of water. If you use buttermilk instead of the yogurt, you can use 1/2 cup of buttermilk and 1/2 cup of flour. Try not to have it too thin. It will be better for it if it's a little bit thicker. So I'm just gonna, I've got clean hands. I just washed the dishes, so they're still clean. Just gonna pop this in the sink. And I am actually going to position this without a lid. Try to sort of clean up, you know, the rim. I will position this without a lid on top of my coffee machine. This is on during the day a lot, and this is actually a heating plate, so it will just gives it a little bit of extra warmth when it's on, and hopefully it becomes more active. So what some people do as well, they put a got dirty hands now. Some people will put a rubber band on. I find it a little bit too early to do that, because it, like I said, it's very thick. Or that's how thick it is. I have made a lot better experience with a thicker one than a liquid one. The liquid one, the little fellas in this, sometimes they die. So why don't I put a lid on? I don't put a lid on because there's yeast in the air which will go into the sourdough, especially when you stir it and aerate it and add oxygen. And I betcha tomorrow we will see the first bubbles in here. Not obviously bubbly enough to make a sourdough bread, but it will start bubbling sometime tomorrow. So every day we'll feed it, and I'll take you along to the journey for a week, and then we'll bake our first sourdough bread. Hello and welcome to day 2 of creating a sourdough starter. Of course, we did the video last night at about 5 o'clock. We had the coldest night ever. Temperatures dropped down to, well, at least 4 degrees. Currently it's 9 o'clock and inside my kitchen here it's about 12 degrees. This starter hasn't done anything, which was to be expected with this temperature. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to feed it. You need to feed the starter for the first few days to actually activate the yeast. I'll show you how to do that. So I've got my starter here. I'm going to feed it with yogurt. If it would be summer and it would be active, I probably would add some water, but in the moment I'm going to add some yogurt. And I did it easy now. I just should have added the flour first to not have this all dirty, but that's okay. I'll just clean this up. So I put 1/4 cup of yogurt and 1/4 cup of rye flour, because we started with rye flour and I would like to have a rye starter. Like I said yesterday, if you want to use wheat, you can do that, or spelt, or whatever you like to use. And then we're going to mix this all. And again, it should be fairly not too liquid. Most sourdough breads, actually, when you use your starter, you add ingredients a day beforehand. It's actually starting to bubble, believe it or not. There was a big bubble. Little fellas must have been hungry. So yeah, sorry, when you do a sourdough bread, there's normally, I'm not sure what you call it in English, like a pre-dough, which is the starter mixed with, you know, potentially some other ingredients, and you leave that for 24 hours. I hope you can see one of those bubbles. If not, I'll show you later. So I mix this through nicely, and I got clean hands, just in the middle of breakfast preparation. But yeah, it was a very cold night and it looks like a very cold day today. So now I've mixed this all together. There's a brand new clean cloth. Definitely more liquid than yesterday, but still firm. And what I'm going to do now, because it is so cold, I was thinking of putting it outside. If I would put it outside, I'd put a beeswax top on, so that, you know, no flies and stuff can go in. But I actually saw that on my little dining room table, that I do have some sunshine there, so I might just put it there for now. Welcome to day 3. Yes, great outfit for the kitchen, isn't it? It's just about 6 a.m. and I'm just ready to go to work, but I thought I'd check on my starter. I don't really want to feed it anymore now. I think I have enough starter. Oh, this actually feels good. I've got enough starter to bake a bread. I just need it to become active, so I'm really looking forward to the bubbling and the rise. Look at that. See how much it has risen? Like yesterday was somewhere down here and now it's here. I had it standing in the sun all day yesterday. You see some bubbles, and it's still cold. It's about 6 degrees, 5 degrees or something this morning. Yeah, gets the right smell as well. So this is going to be ready for making a bread on the weekend. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to stir it, and when I stir it, it will deflate, and that's all right, just to get some more air in. And it does actually, see how it deflated, and it does bubble up while I'm stirring it. So I'm going to do this now, or what's today, Monday. This actually seems quite active. I might even bake a bread before the weekend. I need to make sure that it is not too liquid, otherwise there's not enough flour for the little fellas to eat. So yeah, now I stirred it, it's down here, and I'm gonna put it back. This is the messy part, and yes, I do have clean hands. I'm just gonna wipe the spoon off, wipe everything off the rim, and then put it away again for another day, and we'll look at it tomorrow. So yeah, like I said, today is Monday. Normally I give it 5 days. I might have to put a little plate or something underneath it in case it overflows, because this was actually quite full, and when it gets warmer during the day, I might I might put a little plate underneath it and let it rest there for the day. All right, I'm off to work. I'll see you tomorrow. Welcome back. It's Wednesday, so that will make it day 4 for our sourdough starter. Let's have a look how it looks like. I did put it in a little dish just in case it would run over. It hasn't, but that's all right. Looking from the outside, I'm not sure if you guys are going to see this on the video, but there is bubbles around here, small ones. So we'll take it off, take the wrapping off, the beeswax wrap. Have a smell. That does start to smell like sourdough. You got some bubbles in here. So I haven't fed these or anything like that. I just left it on the countertop, and it is winter. It is quite cool. What I'm waiting for is basically, you can see it's probably up to here now. What I'm waiting for is if I mix this, it will deflate. It will go down to probably here, and then I'm waiting for it to rise back to here within about 3 hours. Once that is achieved, then it is ready to be used. So all I'm going to do now is just, where's the camera? There. And you see some bubbles coming up there when I do this, but yeah, basically just deflating it, stirring it. Oh yeah, that has a really nice strong sourdough smell. Try to scrape the sides down as much as possible. Give it a good stir, and obviously it's 7 o'clock, so it's the morning. We just had another cool night, probably about, I don't know, maybe 12 degrees in here. So the sourdough is down to here now. I'm going to put the rubber band on there, and I'm going to have a look at it in 3 hours to see how far it has risen, and then I'll assess. I'm hoping to bake bread by Saturday, so yeah, that would, you know, hopefully I can do that. If not, I'll just have to wait a little bit longer. Good morning. It's Friday morning. It is 10 to 6. Look at that. So last night I put the rubber band on where the dough was after I mashed it down, and yeah, it looks really nice. It's got a typical sourdough smell. So what I'm going to do now, I'll take my little wooden spoon and I just carefully stir through it again. And you can see it actually has built, I'll probably just see on the camera, it has built like little air holes inside it. Oh, this looks really good. I've got Janus standing in front of me looking if this is something he could eat. Don't think he would like it. Yeah, so it has actually built a nice structure. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to stir through it. And then tonight I'm going to mix it. I have to check which recipe I'm going to use. But I'm basically going to mix it with some, normally some flour and some water, just to create like a pre-dough. And I let that sit overnight. And then I bake my bread on Saturday. I'm curious because unfortunately my my oven broke, and I only got one of those little air fryer ovens from Aldi, which lucky enough was on special a day after my oven broke. So for now I've got that until I have decided on a new oven. So we'll see. It doesn't get as hot, but then again, this oven, although it does have the dial up to 230, yeah, 230 or 250, it never reached 250. I had oven thermometers in there and it never reached that. So I made yeast bread in it, in the little oven, and it was fantastic. It was actually way better than in my normal oven. So stay tuned, we'll see. I shall see you tonight and show you how I'm gonna preserve this for, you know, the next week or so without having to feed it, discard stuff, and just use it when I need it. See you then. Hello, it's Friday afternoon and I'm gonna set up the pre-dough for my 100% rye bread I want to bake maybe tomorrow night or early Sunday morning. So it's Friday afternoon now and I'll show you what I do. So in this bowl I have 290 grams of rye flour, 6 grams of salt, and I am going to add 325 milliliters of water. This is warm water. And the recipe asked for 60 grams of starter. So I gave that a bit of a stir before, and I'm going to add about 60 grams of my starter. Okay, so I've still got a fair bit of starter left. I'll show you what I do with that in a minute, but now I'm just going to mix this up and put a towel over it and leave it overnight. So this is the pre-dough I was talking about. I just mixed it up, the rye flour, water, salt and the starter, and I'm just leaving this on the kitchen counter overnight until it has actually doubled in size. So sort of here now, tomorrow it needs to be here. I put all the starter, my dear Otto, in a clean jar, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some rye flour with a clean spoon. And then I'm going to mix this up. And I'm adding a lot of rye flour. I basically want this to be like Play-Doh, I guess. Like a very, not a liquid consistency at all. Maybe a little bit more. Probably too much is better than too little. Where do you see this better? Over here. Yeah, see, it's like a proper doughy kind of consistency. And once it's like that, I'm just going to put it in the fridge with a lid on it. I'm just going to put it in the fridge. And then if I do want to use it next time, there's probably no point of getting a clean glass now where I'm making a mess. When I want to use it again for the next sourdough bread, all I'm going to do, I'm just going to add some water to activate this. I'll take it out of the fridge, add some water, and then just let it stand. And then after 24 hours, I'll probably do another pre-dough like this one, and bake my bread. But that helps me to have a fairly easy methodology of not having to feed, not having to discard. I always hated the discarding. The feeding part was not too bad, but the discard, I don't bake every day. Like next week I'm gone for about 4 days, so you know, it's just not practical for me. So I quite prefer it this way. Actually, looking at this, I'll add some more flour. Yeah, this is good now. This is quite solid. See? I'm gonna clean this up, put a lid on it, put it in the fridge, and keep it for next time. And yeah, like I said, next time, all I'm gonna do is just take it out of the fridge, add some water, and then once it's sort of active again, I'll take the sourdough I need, the starter I need off it for my pre-dough. Some recipes don't necessarily have a pre-dough, but a lot of my sourdough recipes do. That smells so sourdoughy. And that's it. So yeah, give this recipe a go. No feeding, no discards.